I'm excited about our next session, one that relates back to one of the reasons, again, that business analytics programs are exploding, and that is that the employers are needing business analytics professionals. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Rory MacLeod. I'm not sure, he was the Senior Manager of Insights, Corporate Strategy and Innovation at Bose. But he's going to be addressing the types of problems Bose needs to solve as it relates to the analytics needed in undergraduate and graduate programs.
Thank you very much. As I said, I realize that this is late on a Friday afternoon. You've had a long day. I admire your stick-to-itiveness for a video session that has started at 10 o'clock Eastern and now heading through into the home stretch on a Friday afternoon. Let's see what we can do to try to keep you all awake. If I was just thinking, oh, stick-to-itiveness, I should have put that on to the employability and career readiness section because you guys have passed with flying colors on that. Yeah, I am no longer in the role that in leading the team that I want to talk about. I've transitioned to another role at Bose, but I think it's still, I still remember what it was, even though it was, more than 6 months ago. So if I can get this thing to click through, there. I'm going to talk about career readiness, employability at Bose, but in order to know something about this, I'm going to tell you something about Bose. I'm going to tell you something about the corporate strategy function that a lot of the analysis sits in, and the work we do, how we select people, and sort of how to succeed in those roles. But I'm going to start with a little detour on why we as a discipline, in terms of the market analysis function at Bose, why we exist. Why did you go bankrupt? 2 ways, gradually, then suddenly. So in either case, the starting point is likely to be either not anticipating change before it comes, or not seeing it or responding to it once it has happened. And at Bose, this is the answer to questions like, what would you do if your market came to be dominated by companies that do not care about making a profit selling the products that you sell? That happened to us. How about imagining an exploding market where 90% of the growth and the revenue in the most dynamic area of the market is captured by one company? Well, that's our headphone business. Thank you, Apple. So our job is to mitigate the risk in business decisions, looking for blind spots, the risk that competitor actions or that new entrants to the market or shifting consumer preferences are going to evaporate our markets, disrupt our competitive advantage, reshape our understanding of the opportunity in things that we were planning to do. That's what we're trying to give the company. And the company, just as a little primer, Bose Corporation, we've been around for close to now 60 years. We were founded by Dr. Amar Bose in 1964 with the motto, better products through research. We're based in Framingham, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, where Dr. Bose was a professor at MIT. We are very much focused on the long term, and we are able to do that because we are privately held. So this means that we are not beholden to quarter by quarter vagaries of the stock market. It means that we can make decisions that may hurt in the short term, but will benefit to us in the long run. We're actually, since Dr. Bose died 8-9 years ago, we are held by a special purpose trust with controlling interests vested with the MIT. So we are perpetually a private company. We're a private company that succeeds by being different. Dr. Bose used to say, when they zig, we zag. We need to have the courage to challenge convention, to be curious, to be better, to be different. Dr. Bose had a saying, better equals different equals courageous. You have to have all three of those things if you're going to take a risk in the market and do something which is fundamentally different. The ability to deliver these differences rests on a passionate engineering culture that to this day is inspired by our founder. We have a strong history of innovation. We have a devotion to our customers and customer experience, and a fundamental belief that anything is possible. You're going to get sick and tired of me quoting Dr. Bose, but yeah, he used to say, if you think something is impossible, get out of the way of the person trying to solve it. And that very much speaks of the ethos of the company. We have a product portfolio that spans over 400 products across a variety of product categories. Just laying them out here. Our most recent addition are more health-oriented, I think, products for helping support better sleep and helping to support hearing among consumers. I won't go into detail on all of these. I'll just sort of pause and think about hearing as one of our newest ventures. We're known by and large as a reasonably premium company, and we recognize that we build a lot into products, and so they wind up costing a lot. Our hearing products is the one area where, even though it costs $600 or $700, we're actually at the low end of the market because prescription hearing devices that give the same experience are likely to cost $3,000 to $6,000. So anything is possible. Bose as the low-cost alternative. So within Bose, I want to speak about the function within corporate strategy innovation, and that's a function that exists to drive the company's future. By looking at the direction, informing the direction, placing bets either by ventures that we incubate or by companies that we acquire or partner, or by technologies that we invent. And within that, I used to be part of this integrated corporate insights function, and particularly leading some of the groups of market analytics and the quantitative consumer insights and the data science side. And most of what I'll talk about this afternoon comes around the market analytics and the data science people that I managed and hired and the teams that I assembled there. So our market and data teams focus on three kinds of questions. What are we going to do next? How big are opportunities? How are the markets that we're in now evolving? How should we respond? And if you're wondering, did we see what was happening with Apple coming into the market? Yes, we did. But when there's a freight train with an apple on it coming at you, there's not much you can do. We also look at how do we address customer needs. We analyze pricing. We analyze the patterns of new product introduction to understand what our competitors are doing. We mine customer reviews to understand what customers are looking for in products, how they're responding to ours, what we need to do better, what our competitors are doing. And we also look at the question, are we meeting customer needs? We do market share analysis. Again, the customer reviews tell us something about this. And more of our product portfolio are connected to apps that kick off usage data that tell us a lot about the day-to-day needs and requirements and what people want out of the products that they're getting from us. And each of these areas creates a sort of a challenge in addressing them. The data required for each of those is different. How we source the data, what we need to do with it. It varies from problem area to problem area, but it certainly kept the team really busy and energized. The other thing, or one thing that makes the work that we do as part of the strategy innovation organization a little different than what happens in a lot of analytics functions is that being part of strategy demands that our analysts have a point of view. And so often in a traditional analyst role, the story generally evolves around the what, the so what, and the what next. And in a strategy focus, it's slightly different in that the what is really a description of a problem, a diagnosis of what to do, and then a prescription for what to happen, what should happen as a result of it. And over the years, I've found dealing with even sort of experienced analysts, sticking out your neck and delivering a point of view is something that a lot of analysts find challenging. And I say even with relatively seasoned and senior people that sort of come into our group from other organizations within Bose or that we hire in, the notion that you're needing to go beyond description and start solving a business problem can constitute a sort of a bit of a mind shift for folks. And this is especially a problem or a challenge, there are no such things as problems in business, that the further we are from our core business or from the current market, where signals get weaker and weaker and weaker. And for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been working closely with our competitive intelligence group as they've built a capability in this area. And their stock in trade is drawing inferences about the strategic intent of our competitors. And they go about it in a very different way than the way that the market and customer data analytics side of the house traditionally does it. They explicitly base their approach on something closer to a national security paradigm rather than our marketing and analytics paradigm. Now, to help build this capability, they bring in consultants with CIA backgrounds to train the staff. And when these folks come in, I send my staff to those training sessions. Because it's not just dealing with like weaker signals. It's getting into the mindset of integrating diverse sources to construct a compelling story that accurately reflects and explains the available facts and then conveys a judgment. So this is like tailor-made for the kind of point of view we're looking for in the strategy organization. And I said, this is not usually something that we find. This is more likely something that we have to train for. But if you want to have one behind the scenes view of things, this is a good one. Now to the down to the nitty gritty of how do we hire? How do you get a job with us? I suppose the first part is we don't really hire for skills. We hire for how you use them. And the challenge comes that a lot of candidates are sort of trained to, I tell you my tool set, I tell you what I've learned, and we're more interested in what you've done and what problems you've solved. And I also recognize that this can be a bit of a challenge for newly minted undergrads or even grad students coming out. If they haven't had internships or done case studies or had some opportunity to solve a problem, to solve a business problem, this becomes a bit of a challenge. And just sort of on the side, we tend to hire most of our folks either we poach them from other parts of the company, or we hire them in at a more senior level than right out of college. So for newly minted grads, this becomes sort of a bonus point. If they can frame their capabilities in terms of how they've used them and the problems that they solve, then they're going to get a leg up on their competitors, who are most likely going to be structuring their resumes and preparing for their interviews in terms of the tools that they know how to use. So one of the things that we also do that's to operationalize this is use something called performance-based hiring. And I've taken a screenshot of the material from the Adler Group. This is something that we've bought in from them. We use objectives and success factors of the job as the main selection criteria when interviewing, not just skills and qualifications and personality, although we look for culture fits and things like that too. But we interview to find evidence that somebody can use their skills to meet the expectations that we have on what the role is going to deliver for the company and the kinds of problems that we need them to solve. And so when you look at a job description that we will put together, it's sort of broken down into sort of the predictable areas. We do describe the work. We are quite explicit about the purpose that the work is for, and then a statement about what we're looking for. And so if you think about old newspaper language, above the fold and below the fold, we're not really talking about any particular skill set at this point. We're sort of highlighting the behaviors and the capabilities that we're looking for, not the tool set. Later on, of course, we start to talk about tool sets when we put flagging what you're going to be doing, and then sort of a little more detail. And then way at the end, that's where we get to qualifications. But the qualifications are really only indicators that you can do the work, so that it gives us a hint about what it is that you are going to. So we might ask about. So you've used Tableau or you've used SQL, and it sort of gives people sort of a hint of the things that they're going to need to be able to show that they can use. But they're going to have to come in and tell us a story of the problems that they solved with it to succeed in the interview. Here for this one, that's 9+ years. This is why we're poaching from other folks. So getting hired is really just the beginning, because we're also quite focused on giving people a very structured path to success, so that we are laying out sort of the criteria to enable people to be successful in growing in the jobs. And I've sort of shrunk a lot of text and just highlighted sort of critical things to be thinking about, or what we're looking for. So like we break down each level of a job family, and sort of what the basic requirements, what basically part of doing that job, and then sort of call out what it is that is expected for somebody in that level, and sort of laying out what are the criteria for promotion. These are generally expressed in behaviors we're looking for, um, uh, and so mapping out sort of how somebody might evolve, what they're doing from more junior to more senior roles. It's now just a sort of cheat sheets on the sort of the things that really impress me in interviews and when I'm looking for candidates. Curiosity. It's amazing how impressed and how hard it can be to find sometimes. But if people can show curiosity, both in terms of sort of a path to a solution to a problem, but it even shows through in the preparation that they do for an interview. Curious will understand, well, what is it about this company? And so doing some research about the company before they come to talk to me, and then demonstrate curiosity in how they've solved problems in their past. Critical thinking. Everybody talks about it, everybody values it. There are sort of structured approaches, and there are books written on it. Being able to demonstrate critical thinking in the story of how people have solved a problem. I love to see that. And sort of a third thing that I will often, almost always ask about is how people are comfortable like giving bad news. Often the most valuable thing that we can do for the company is to prevent a mistake. Stakeholders and leaders fall in love with projects and initiatives, and sometimes they're just bad ideas. And sometimes you have to tell someone their baby is ugly. And being able to speak truth to power, priceless. Now, for extra credit, being good at making the complicated simple. And that's a really, really hard thing to do. 25 plus years into my career, I'm still trying to figure out how that works. But that is a great skill, great storytelling skill. We talk about storytelling and delivering results in a compelling and engaging manner. But a key part of this is being able to often make very, very complicated work very simple and understandable. As bright as the senior stakeholders are, they just don't necessarily live in our world. And it's a challenge. Now, finally, the last thing I want to share is some insights that I've gleaned from talking with senior leaders across the company over the years. And in particular, I've benefited from spending some time with somebody who became the CEO, a former CEO who was just a divisional vice president when I worked with him, and somebody who is the current president and chief operating officer of the company, and they're sharing some of the really impactful things that they've told me. There are problems with analysts, and this is conveyed in sort of how they tell their stories and how they deliver their work, is that they like to talk about themselves and their work and things that are interesting to them, not the business. So analysts like to talk about methodology, they like to talk about data, they like to talk about findings. The business likes to talk about meaning, applications, and what they're going to do with it. And so much work goes into output that people they just want to tell the story of what they did. And that's not really the business story. You have to know the stuff, but most of it belongs at best in an appendix. The advice that I received from this leader was, if you are talking to senior stakeholders and you're spending more than 25% of the time talking about things that are of interest to analysts, then you're spending too much time talking about things that aren't relevant to the business. Now, I recognize that for relatively junior employees, they may not be having a lot of leadership conversations, but they should be preparing themselves for it and thinking about it, and recognizing what's the difference between telling an analyst story and telling a business story. And the other thing that analysts typically do is make their work very hard to use. And by this, I mean they're focused solely on the data set in front of them, not really being willing to draw in other things and wanting to hedge its application and its how to generalize from it. They feel very safe, and they should feel very safe in the analysis and the data set that they've been working with, because they are probably the worldwide expert in that data set. But then they say, well, this is true of this time period, or in this part of the market, or for these kinds of customers. And often the business is asking for more general applications. And the unfortunate thing that happens is that analysts will sort of hedge and cage the application of their output so tightly that then somebody else takes it and sort of interprets the meaning for the broader company. And the danger of that is that the analysts know where the lines are, and they know either not to cross them, or they know if they've crossed them in how you might interpret or analyze data. The people who have taken the hard to use work and decide how to simplify it and make it usable, they don't necessarily know where the lines are, or that there even are lines. And so it's a really great skill to try to make your work easy to use. And then finally, an upbeat thing maybe, and this is sort of maybe not surprising, but this was sort of related to me by sort of an older senior leader, just how analysts are beginning to manage their careers like software engineers and data scientists, where there's a continual learning, continual skills upgrading. And this is probably not all that surprising now that with the whole idea of data science, that statistics and computational methods become closer and closer to what computer scientists and software engineers do and the tools that they use. But it is sort of an important, if you want, a parting message for all potential analysts heading into the workforce, is that they're not done with you yet. They are going to have to manage their careers and embark on a lifelong learning process to keep up with fast evolving space that we all find ourselves in these days. And with that, I've managed to leave like 2 minutes for questions.
All right, thank you so much, Rory. There was less questions and more sort of agreement with what you were saying and excitement around what you were saying. What I love about your presentation, once again, is this, the ability. I know a lot of faculty after these summits ask whether you're okay with us sharing your video, because they want to show students, the kinds of things that companies like Bose are looking for. And so, it's really invaluable information that you're providing, and, really gives us kind of that inside look at the things that the company finds important. And I also, of course, love to hear what Dr. Bose's mottos are amazing. So I thank you so much for joining us again.
Okay, then you have done the remarkable thing of having something go 6 hours and still be on time. Okay, good luck. Thanks very much, everyone. Have great weekends.
Yeah, thanks so much. Take care.